Well, good evening. Welcome to class, and I'd like to welcome to inside the Entrepreneur Studio, Mr. Jim Dustin. Jim is currently a managing director with NFP Corporation. Prior to NFP, Jim was founder and CEO of Employee Benefits International, a company specializing in insurance products, consulting services, and technologies for businesses, for nonprofits, and municipalities. Jim sold Employee Benefits International to NFP in 2015. He's also one of the founders and chairman of Wellness IQ, a wholesale distribution company that works with employers to help their employees live healthier lifestyles through technology-based wellness solutions. Prior to his acquisition by NFP, Employee Benefits International was named Inc.'s magazine's list of 5,000 fastest growing companies in 2012, 2013, 2014, and 2015. EBI was also recognized by Inside Magazine as a 2013 and 2014 Northeast Ohio Success Winner. In addition, Employee Benefits International has been awarded Crane's Cleveland Business Award for Top Employee Benefit Service from 2014 through 2016. So please join me in welcoming to Notre Dame College, Mr. Jim Dustin.
Thank you.
So Jim, set the table for us. Tell us a little bit about NFP for starters.
So NFP is the 5th largest insurance and consulting brokerage firm in the country. They're backed by 2 private equity firms out of New York and Chicago. In our industry, you either get bought by, say, a publicly traded company, a private equity firm, or you would build your company as a legacy for your kids. So bring your kids into the business, groom them to take it over for 2nd and 3rd generation.
So for the class, one of the things that's always helpful is we get kind of a sense of the arc of someone's career. Now, you didn't start off as the CEO or managing director.
No.
What was your first job straight out of school?
So I graduated in '88 from Ohio State. It was probably the worst time, at least when I was growing up, in terms of the economy. Not a lot of jobs, so I went into a family floor covering business working for my mom at that point in time. I was a classic underachiever, quite frankly. I didn't do all that well in school. I couldn't talk to anybody, frankly, in terms of either selling or understanding those skills. So when I went into the business, I didn't know much and kind of just had to learn by doing at that point in the equation. Just got better at sales.
So, founding the company, starting the company, what was the motivating factor? Was there something that caused you to launch this business? How did you get into it? This is an entrepreneurship class, and that's one of the things that we love to talk about. So how did it happen?
So I worked in the insurance industry, and for those that don't know, on the group side, it's a pretty great industry that not a lot of people know about. You can be groomed and taught how to deliver healthcare product, group annuity product, et cetera, at a corporate level. You make great money, you don't work very hard, and you entertain a lot. And that was sort of my ideal job. When I was out, I did pretty well at it. I mean, I was there for 10 years at United Healthcare, and I just got bored, frankly. And the more I looked at the business and ways to get out of the business because I was bored, I just realized I wasn't really good at anything else, quite frankly. So I decided to leave, and I thought I could do it better than the people that I was delivering the product to, and that was essentially it.
So, and it was, from your perspective, it was starting this. Did you start this alone, or did you start this with a partner or partners?
I did. So I spent 10 years at United Healthcare. So I delivered the product that I sell today on a retail level to organizations like yours, to brokers and consultants here in Northeast Ohio. I got pretty good at it, and I just felt like I could do it better. My industry, for those that don't know, the bar is set very low. There's not a lot of innovation in the industry. So, I've just figured if I worked harder than anybody else, I could figure it out. And I just left. I took a very untraditional path to what most of the people in my business do. If you're a group rep in our industry, you get 5 or 6 years worth of experience. If you want to go on to the retail side of the business, you would leave, go to a large agency here in town or somewhere else, and grow your business that way. I quit cold turkey and just basically hung out my own shingle.
Really?
Yeah.
Had you been planning this for a while? I mean,
I've been planning to get out for about 4 or 5 years, and had tried other businesses while I was still working. That seems to be a common path. People start a business while they're working. I failed at all of those, essentially, and just realized that this was the only thing I was going to be good at, and that's what I did. So
it turned out you are good at that, right?
Turned out I was pretty good at it, yeah. Yeah.
That's right. So, what were some of the early days, some of the challenges that you ran into as you're getting this thing going?
So when I left, it was in 2000. The market was up. I'd saved enough money. I felt like I was comfortable. At that point, I had a wife and 1 child. Within, call it 4 months, I think the tech bubble hit, and every investment I had was virtually gone. My wife told me she was pregnant with our 2nd kid, and I had to just basically go work and just grind it out and find clients. So that's what we did. That was a very difficult thing for probably 2 or 3 years. But once we turned the corner, it got easier. And ultimately, I built a business that was big enough that I could merge with another company. So I decided to do that. At that point in time, I went to a large regional brokerage firm here as a partner. I spent 5 years there, growing that business to the extent that I thought I was worth more. My partners and I had that disagreement, didn't go well. I ended up leaving there after 5 years and just started what is EBI today, or what was EBI before I sold it.
So one of the things that's always great when you talk to entrepreneurs, especially entrepreneurs who are open like Jim is, one of the great things to do is to ask them about mistakes. Are you comfortable talking about some of the mistakes that you made along the way?
Yeah, I've got lots of them. So
most entrepreneurs do.
Yeah. Let's see. I think the biggest thing that I learned was if you're going to start a business, get a good lawyer. That would be my first advice, and get a good tax accountant. When I started the business, I housed inside of a private equity firm that turned out to be a Ponzi scheme. Right? I didn't do my homework. I didn't do my due diligence on those people when I started the business. So it ended up costing me probably my entire life savings. That would have been my biggest mistake, but it forced me into working harder. That was probably the worst at the time. I think if I look at my worst recent mistake, I would say this. Anytime you have employees, I think, and we talked about this actually at dinner, when we grew the business that we have, we were very paternalistic. We've kept almost all of our original employees through various iterations of the company, but I do think you can get careless with employees. I think if you have underperformers, you need to probably move them out because they do hurt your culture. And I think, in some cases we've gotten ahead of ourselves in that respect, and we've kept people around longer than we probably should have.
You touch on something that you almost always hear entrepreneurs talk about right away, and that's the word culture. Talk about what is the culture of EBI, or now NFP?
Boy, I don't know. It's probably not as fun as it should be, because I'm not that fun a guy, quite frankly. But I do think I've been very fortunate in my career to find a core group of people that have been very loyal to me. All of them are still with us today. They were all fortunate enough to be able to be part of our success, and we've rewarded them for that. So, I think that was kind of the key thing for me, is to find the people that gravitated towards me and believed in at least my vision for what the company was going to be. Because when we started it, and when I left my partnership, those people had no reason to come work for me at all. I mean, I was broke and had very little money to do that, but yet they came with me and helped grow the company. So
you built the team initially?
Yes, yeah. For sure.
What do you look for when you're hiring people? Let's start with that. Where do you look for when you're hiring people?
The best employees we have were people outside of our industry. So again, very low bar. People don't expect a lot in our business, so we basically took smart people. I want people that are smart, want to work hard. We can pretty much do anything from there, in my opinion.
Yeah. And when you built that initial core team, were you looking at different kinds of people, different strengths, or were you just looking for really smart people? I mean, what was that core team? What did that core team look like?
Mostly people that didn't do what I did, right? So we started with a core database person that knew a lot about computers, which I know nothing about. So that was helpful on the technology side. You know, I can sell. That's the one thing I know how to do, and I do it pretty well. So we looked for that person. We looked for somebody who could help us on the advertising side, kind of the marketing side, and just kind of built the company from there.
Mm-hmm. Is there a danger when you're starting a company that the entrepreneur thinks he has to do everything?
Sure. I think most entrepreneurs, you know, particularly when you start a business out of your basement, or if you build it out of an idea, you've got to start with this idea that you control everything from beginning to end. Mm-hmm. That's usually the death of the product. Because it's generally not scalable. You only have so much time, particularly in our business. So once you maximize your time, you've essentially maximized your revenue and your ability to make any more money. So unless you can either duplicate yourself or create an environment where you can build upon that, it becomes very tough.
You said your industry is not a very innovative industry?
No. Not at all.
I mean, how do you drive innovation then in your organization if the rest of the industry is not?
So to give you an example, in the insurance consulting world 10 years ago, nobody wanted to do corporate wellness. But we saw companies that wanted to do it, didn't want to pay for it, but at some point that market matured, and we started to see people wanting to pay for that service. At that point in time, we could have kept the wellness company as a division, if you will. But I wanted to spin it out because my belief was that the valuations on those companies would be different than a valuation on an insurance consulting firm. Turns out we were right. We spun out Wellness IQ into its own separate business, and its trajectory has really sort of changed the way firms like that deliver that product.
So that wasn't a part of the NFP? It
was not. So today, I still own two companies separate from, we had three companies. NFP bought our insurance consulting practice. We kept the Wellness IQ separate, mm-hmm. and then our office in Arizona as well.
Okay. So the transition to being acquired by NFP, was that something that you envisioned kind of all along, that there was going to be an exit there?
Yeah, again, I don't know how everybody feels, but my opinion of a business, when you go into it, when you start it, you need to have an exit strategy. Whatever that strategy is, if it's transitioning to family, that's an exit strategy. If it's selling to another entity, that's an exit strategy. I never had any grand visions of building a company that I was going to leave to my kids. They're much smaller than I am. So my feeling was create it for an exit strategy, and we did that. So the nice thing about where we're at in our valuation process when we sold at the height of the market in terms of valuations. Now that I'm within NFP, we've actually transitioned that on a national scale, and we were recently resold internally on the private equity side at the highest valuation of any company like ours in the country.
Wow.
So,
was there any, when you were going through that decision to do the deal with the NFP, was there any hesitation on your part? I mean, that you're giving up your baby?
I'm not that connected to it. I mean, it was very important for me to be in control of the transaction. So when I looked for a partner, I was fortunate that I was able to sell to someone that I've known for a long time, who actually runs the company that we sold to. So there was a comfort level there for me, but we looked at 6 or 7 different vendors, and it just really became about fit. Mm-hmm. So I still drive the culture. I have a boss, which I didn't have for a long time. That's a little different, but I only see him a couple times a year, so it doesn't feel like I have one at this point.
How do you balance your time between Wellness IQ in what you're doing for NFP?
For a long time, I was running Wellness IQ as well, so there was a lot of split duties. But again, in any growth of the business, you've got to decide on infrastructure. So we hired a chief operations officer, we hired a president. They run the business today, and I get to basically just work with the finance side of the business.
Yeah, okay, that's cool. Has your leadership style changed over the years? Are you a different leader now than you were when you launched EBI?
No.
Really?
No, I'm not an easy guy to work for. I think, again, my demands of people are different. I want people who work hard. I demand it of myself. I'm the first person in, you'll hear this a lot, first person in, last person to leave. I'm not so much that anymore, but those are the type of people that I gravitate towards, and that's not always good, because I think you need a good mix of different styles of people. I believe I'm fair. I think, at least in terms of the employees that are with us today and have been with us for a long time, clearly we've got something going on because they've pretty much all stayed, but I don't view myself as being the easiest guy to work for.
And you've always been that?
Pretty much, yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Tough on myself, so.
Do you see yourself launching another company? I mean, a lot of serial entrepreneurs, they do it again and again and again. You're a young guy, you've got a lot of years. Do you see yourself launching something else?
I think my process has morphed. So we've been able to sell the company for a lot of money. I think the next iteration will be the sale of Wellness IQ. We're looking for probably a 3 to 5 year exit there. We think that one will be the biggest exit, so I think that changes how I look at things. I think I've been fortunate in my industry is to learn a lot about the business itself, and that's taken me into other areas. So I do other private equity investing on my own, either through some type of venture investing, and I think I like that as much as I like building companies anymore. So
3 to 5 years, you're thinking would be the exit. So what are you doing now to get yourself ready for that?
Well, so at least in our industry, when you sell a business, they make you stay for a while. So I have a contract, I have to stay. So I'm 18 months away from that. And then I've got probably an option for another 2 years. I'll stay for as long as I like it. And then I'll either have sold Wellness IQ and figured something else out, or I don't know. I expect I'll always do something, in terms of business. It's fun for me. It's probably the only thing I'm any good at. I don't have a lot of hobbies. So, I think I've got to do something relative to that, and that's probably where I'll end up somewhere.
So healthcare is an industry right now that everybody is talking about.
Yep.
Any advice for students like these guys as they're getting ready to go out there?
Well, I think, look, I mean, I don't know what you all like to do, but I never would have thought I'd be in the insurance business, quite frankly, and it's not all that sexy or exciting. But I think if you find something you're good at, my advice is learn an industry, hopefully on somebody else's dime if you can, and figure out where you can find inefficiencies and maybe do it better. Because I think you get ramp speed that way. I think today it's very tough to take an idea from beginning to end and all of the things in between that are required to get that done. So if you can short circuit that and get some industry experience where you want to be ultimately, I think that's the best way to do it. It was for me, at least.
When you look at the high points of your career, what do you think was the high point of your career so far?
Business-wise?
Yeah.
Honestly, was selling the business at the top end of the market. For our business, the biggest challenge is when to sell, right? And that may be for everyone, but in our business in particular, lots of people hang on way too long, and then they become either too old to be innovative, they don't have a good succession plan. So it was pretty cool to sell the business. I'm not going to lie. It was pretty cool.
That was good.
It was pretty cool.
So I'll ask one more question, and I'll turn it over to the students then. What are 3 pieces of advice that you'd give to someone who's thinking, yeah, I want to be an entrepreneur someday?
Well, for me, I knew very early in my career that it was tough for me to work for anybody else. So if you have that sort of knowledge about yourself, be true to that. I think get experience if you can, but don't wait too long. There are a lot of people who wait entirely too long to transition into owning your own business, and it is scary. You never have enough money, you never have enough time, but you got to work very hard when you get there, and you just got to see the end point, right? You don't stick with something so long that it becomes a drag, but follow kind of what your process is and get to an end result and know what you want at the end.
Good advice. Good advice. Let me open it up to the students. Any questions, guys?
Besides having an exit strategy, what's the biggest lesson you learned throughout your journey?
Structure your company the right way. And by that I mean look at the corporate structure, have a very clear understanding. It may not seem like a big deal, but also if you want partners, or if you're thinking about having partners and everybody seems to want them, question that. Figure out whether or not you can do it on your own and whether you really need partners, because they're tough to get rid of if it doesn't work out.
Jonathan?
If you were to change anything in your life, what would it be?
In business life or personal life?
Both.
Go both. Yeah.
I'd have more hobbies, would probably be my personal. In the business side of it, I don't know. I think I'll give you the example. So in the wellness company is growing at exponential numbers, right? So I think we started, it was doing $1 million, and then it went to 4 million, then it went to 8 million, 12 million, and almost 20 million inside of 4 years. I'm not used to that type of growth. I'm used to more of a slow growth process. So I think we've spent a lot of money and made a lot of mistakes trying to figure all of that out. And if I'd have had a better game plan on the front end, I probably would have spent less money and had more in my pocket to get there. So high growth is hard to manage.
Joseph?
You mentioned when starting out in business to have a lawyer. I was wondering if that's industry specific and what the benefit of having a lawyer would be to starting out very small.
Yeah, so the biggest mistakes I've made myself, the biggest mistakes I've seen other people make is they don't spend enough time and energy looking at their corporate structure, making sure that they trademark things that they need to trademark. And it's worth having a decent lawyer look at your business model. Corporate structure is huge, right? C Corp, S Corp, LLC, they're all different. They all have different meanings. They all have different meanings when you have partners. So, those are things that are important. Structure is everything. If you do it right the first time, you don't have to fix things after you get successful, and that's a problem.
Did you ever have a board of advisors?
No, but I probably should have had one. Yeah.
How do you deal with the stress of starting your own business?
I didn't sleep for about 1.5 years. And that was very difficult. I don't know that you can prepare in any way for it. I think, if you have the chance to be capitalized, pay very close attention to the capital. Don't squander the money. You'll sleep a lot better. I didn't do that.
When you're in the business itself?
I don't know. I'll figure it out I'll let you know when I figure it out. It's tough. When you own the business, you live and die the business every day. Every win, every loss, it's personal. And that's a very difficult thing to internalize. It's tough on your family. So you got to kind of measure that, and hopefully you get through it with your family intact, and I think that's as important as anything.
Phil?
Jim, you talked about salesmanship as being one of your core competencies. Coupled with that is usually the ability to network and meet people and grow your business. So at United Healthcare and the succeeding companies, how important was networking for you, and how did you do it outside of just cold calling on a potential customer? What kinds of things did you do to build up your personal network?
You know, for me, I'm not a natural salesperson. I could barely speak to anyone when I graduated college. I learned over time that as I got better at something, I was comfortable talking about things that I knew a lot about. I'm still today not comfortable talking about things I don't know. So I'm socially awkward in parties, so I'm not a great networker. I basically built my business by working harder than anybody else, and that got me referrals, and people respected the work that we did, and that's kind of how I built the business. I'm terrible at networking. I see people that are great at it, and I'm highly envious of that skill. I just don't have it, so I can't impart that knowledge. I see the value in it every day. I just can't do it. So it's really been more by success and osmosis and doing a good job than anything else.
There's certain publications that for me are go-to publications that I always read. I read the Wall Street Journal, I read Fast Company, I read Wired. Do you have any go-to publications that you make sure that you always read?
I'm a reader anyway, so I read everything. So I read every publication I can get my hands on, particularly industry-specific stuff. The one thing I think in terms of maybe networking that I do, and I think I do better than anyone, at least in my industry, is I read enough to know who I need to know, and then I figure out ways to get there, right? Whether it's in a conference or in some setting, I know enough about certain things to leverage that. And I think, Wall Street Journal is great. Any industry publications in the industry that you want to be in are great. Putting yourself in conferences where there are a lot of thought leaders. You want to be in the healthcare business, you want to go to Morgan Stanley's Healthcare IT Conference in San Francisco. Spend the money, it's worth it, because you'll get ideas and you'll gain knowledge, and I think that's the biggest thing you can do.
Are there any industries that you think are real hot right now that students who are getting ready to graduate from college might want to gravitate to?
Healthcare IT is the only business I know that's smoking hot. To give you an example, we invested in a healthcare IT company in Columbus that just sold for almost $2 billion in 7 years from start to finish. That's the unicorn I have, so that's pretty cool.
That's smoking hot.
That's smoking hot.
Smoking hot.
Yeah.
Any other questions before I ask my last one? Any other pieces of advice that you'd give? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
What would you say would be sorry for that. When you're putting your team together, like what made you choose those guys to be on your team, or did it just happen?
Some of it just happened, but I think I gravitate towards people that fill in where I'm weak. And again, so networking, socially awkward. If you look at my partners in the businesses that we run, they're all much more gregarious than I am. They talk to people. I think, again, so I'm looking for people that can complement what I do. I think I know my industry very well, and if I can build knowledge around that, I think smart people tend to take that and do other things with it. So, again, my best advice, good lawyer, good accountant, when you start your business, it solves a lot of issues.
Any last piece of advice for students as they get ready to embark on their careers?
No, I wish I had this when I was starting out, because I had no clue. I just basically did it because I had no other choice. I think you guys are, in a great point in time where you're going out into the market. There's a lot of things that are picking up in the industry today, so it's a great time to be graduating. I wish you all the luck in the world. It's pretty cool.
Please join me in thanking Jim.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, anytime.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Cool.